Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really getting into a fascinating ancient text. It's called their Dhammadāyādasuttaṃ, which I believe translates to something like heirs to the Dhamma.
That's right. Heirs to the Dhamma. It's from the Majjhima Nikaya, a really core collection of Buddhist discourses.
Okay, and our mission for this deep dive is to, well, unpack what that actually means. You know, inheriting wisdom, principles, how different that really is from just inheriting stuff, material possessions.
Exactly.
We'll get into some, I think, surprising ideas about self-discipline and maybe find a practical path to inner peace.
It definitely offers that. And the setting itself is important. This isn't happening in a vacuum.
Right. Where does it take place?
It's in Savatthi at Jetavana, which was Anathapindika's monastery, and the Buddha is speaking directly to his monks, the bhikkhus.
Okay, so very much grounded in that community setting. It underlines that these aren't just like abstract thoughts.
Precisely. These were foundational teachings meant for practice. And it all really boils down to the central question, the one we'll keep coming back to. Are you an heir to wisdom, the Dhamma, or an heir to, well, things?
That's a powerful question to start with.
It really makes you reflect, doesn't it? On your values, your motivations.
Definitely. So let's dive in. The Buddha starts with this really direct statement. Be heirs to the Dhamma, not heirs to material things. Amisa is the word.
Amisa, yes. Material things, provisions.
What does that mean, though, really? Is he just saying don't own stuff? Because that seems hard for most people.
Well, it's deeper than just rejecting possessions. The Buddha explains his motivation, and it's rooted in compassion. He says he genuinely cares for his disciples. He wants them to be known for inheriting the teachings, the Dhamma, not just for getting food and robes from him, the Amisa.
Ah, okay. So it's about their reputation, in a way, and maybe his, too.
Yes, exactly. He points out that if the disciples are just focused on the material side, it reflects poorly on everyone. It suggests the teaching isn't the main thing. But if they're Dhamma heirs, focused on the principles, then it brings praise. It shows the purity of their commitment.
That makes sense. It's about what you prioritize.
Yeah.
And then he uses this analogy, right? The food analogy, which I found really striking.
Oh, absolutely. It makes the principle incredibly concrete.
Could you walk us through that scenario?
Okay, so imagine this. The Buddha's finished his meal. He's full. There's some leftover food, maybe some alms food, that he's basically ready to toss out.
Right.
Then 2 monks arrive, and they're genuinely hungry, weak, probably exhausted from their practice or travels. The Buddha says, look, there's this leftover food. If you don't want it, I'll just throw it away.
Wow. Okay, so that puts them right on the spot. A real test.
A very immediate test of that principle. Dhamma heir or Amisa heir.
So what does the first monk do?
The first bhikkhu, he stops and thinks. He remembers the teaching. Be heirs to the Dhamma, not Amisa. He identifies the food clearly as Amisa, the material thing. So despite being hungry, despite being weak, he makes a conscious choice. He decides, no, I'll endure this hunger for tonight. He prioritizes the principle.
He chooses not to eat. Wow. That takes discipline.
It really does, an act of deliberate self-restraint.
Okay, and the second monk, what's his approach?
The second bhikkhu takes a different route. He thinks, well, I'm hungry and weak. Eating this food will help me regain my strength. So he eats it.
Which also seems perfectly logical, right? Take care of your body so you can practice.
On the surface, yes. Both seem like reasonable responses to hunger. One endures for principle, one eats for practical reasons.
But then comes the Buddha's assessment. And this is where it gets maybe a bit surprising for modern ears.
It is quite surprising. He looks at both monks and he explicitly praises the first one, the one who remained hungry. He calls that monk's action more praiseworthy and laudable.
Why? Is it just about praising austerity? Suffering for its own sake?
No, not at all. And this is the crucial part. He explains why it's praiseworthy. It's because that choice, that act of restraint, directly contributes to cultivating really valuable inner qualities. Qualities like having fewer wishes, being content with little, apicchata, santuttiya, a kind of inner frugality or effacement, salakaya,
Okay.
and also being easily supported, suhadataya. And perhaps most importantly, it arouses sustained energy and effort, virya, in the long run.
Ah, I see. So the value isn't in the hunger itself, but in what choosing the principle develops inside the monk.
Precisely. It's an investment in spiritual capital, you could say. Cultivating these virtues is the real gain, more valuable and lasting than temporary comfort.
That really reframes it. It's not sacrifice as loss, but sacrifice as, well, as cultivation. gaining something deeper?
Exactly right. It's about where true strength and ease come from, not from indulging every impulse, but from this inner cultivation.
Fascinating. Okay, so the Buddha makes this point very powerfully. Then he leaves, and one of his chief disciples steps up, Sariputta.
Yes, the esteemed Sāriputta. And this shows how the teaching continued, how it was discussed and integrated immediately. He takes the opportunity to elaborate on a related theme.
Which is?
He talks about seclusion, viveka. Basically, how monks should train themselves in a kind of solitude or withdrawal, not just physically, but mentally.
Okay, so moving away from distractions, maybe?
Yes, and moving away from unwholesome states of mind. Sāriputta poses the question directly to the other monks. When do disciples fail to train properly in this seclusion? And when do they succeed?
And what does failure look like, according to him? Who are the blameworthy ones in this context?
Well, he lays out some clear characteristics. First, they simply don't abandon the things the Buddha, the teacher, told them to abandon. They hold on to unwholesome habits. He uses some specific terms. They might be bahulika, kind of given to excessive activity, maybe always busy, agitated, restless. Or the opposite, sathilika, meaning slothful, lazy, lacking energy.
Okay, extremes.
Right. And they are okamani pubalgama. They're sort of foremost in falling away, in transgressing the rules or principles. They lead the charge downhill, so to speak.
Not good.
No. And finally, paviveka nikitadura, they've basically laid down the burden. They've given up the effort required for seclusion. They're not trying anymore.
And he says this applies to everyone, right? Not just the newbies.
Exactly. He makes it clear elder monks, middle monks, new monks, anyone can fall into these patterns if they aren't diligent. They become heirs to distraction, not heirs to Dhamma.
Okay, so that's the warning. What about the positive side? What does it look like when monks are training properly in seclusion, when they are praiseworthy?
It's essentially the direct opposite. These disciples do abandon what the teacher said to abandon. They actively let go of the unwholesome. They are not excessively busy or agitated, nor are they lazy or slothful. They find that middle ground of balanced energy.
Makes sense.
And importantly, they are okamani nikitotura. They've laid down the burden of falling away. They've put aside the tendency to transgress.
Okay.
Instead, they are paviveke pubalgama. They are foremost in seclusion. They prioritize it. They lead the way in cultivating that inner space.
And again, this applies across the board.
Yes. Elder, middle, new, consistent, diligent effort is what makes them praiseworthy heirs of the Dhamma.
So this brings up a really practical question. What are these things that Sāriputta keeps saying need to be abandoned? What's the actual stuff we need to let go of to achieve this seclusion?
Yes. He doesn't leave it abstract. He provides a pretty detailed list of these evil, unwholesome states, as they're often translated.
Okay, let's hear it.
It starts with the big ones, the roots: greed, lobha, and aversion or hatred, dosa.
The classics.
Absolutely. Then related things like anger, kota, and resentment, or malice, upanaha, holding on to grudges. Then more subtle ones, denigration, maka, putting others down, and harshness or domineering behavior, pasa. Envy or jealousy, isa, and stinginess or avarice, machera. Can't stand others' success, won't share what you have. Deceit, maya, and fraud or hypocrisy, being tricky, presenting a false front.
Okay, this is getting quite comprehensive.
It is. Obstinacy or stubbornness, dhamma, and rivalry or contention, sarampa, always needing to compete or argue. Then the ego-driven ones, conceit, sincerious, and excessive pride or arrogance, atimana, thinking you're better than others.
Right.
And finally, states that undermine mindfulness, intoxication or infatuation, mada, getting carried away by things, and heedlessness or negligence, pamada. Just carelessness, really, lack of attention.
Wow, that's quite the list. It covers a lot of ground, from big emotions to subtle attitudes. These are the inner amisa, the inner things we cling to.
That's a great way to put it, yes. These are the mental and emotional burdens we need to abandon to achieve that clear, secluded state of mind. And Sāriputta doesn't just list the problems, he points directly to the solution for abandoning all of these things.
Which is
the middle path, the Majjhima Paipita. He highlights its incredible power. He says this path is making vision, making knowledge. It leads directly to peace, to higher knowledge, to enlightenment, and ultimately to nibbana.
Nibbana, liberation. Okay.
Yeah.
And this middle path, just so everyone listening is clear, this is the Noble Eightfold Path, right?
Exactly. That's the practical framework.
Can you quickly list those 8 parts for us?
Sure. It's right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration.
Right view, right intention, speech, action, livelihood, Effort, mindfulness, concentration. Got it.
And that structured path, Sariputta implies, is the concrete way you actually do the abandoning. It's how you systematically cultivate the mind and conduct to become a true heir of Dhamma. It addresses everything on that list, from greed and anger right down to heedlessness and pride. It's the actionable plan.
Okay, so bringing this all together then, this deep dive into the Dhammadāyādasuttaṃ, it really highlights this stark choice, doesn't it? Being an heir to wisdom, the Dhamma, versus just an heir to material things, the amisa.
Absolutely. That distinction is core. And the Buddha's food analogy just makes it so visceral, so immediate.
Yeah, you don't forget that image.
And then Sariputta comes in and builds on it, emphasizing that this isn't passive. It requires diligent practice, self-cultivation, that idea of seclusion. And the Noble Eightfold Path provides that comprehensive roadmap. It shows us how to cultivate the wholesome and abandon the unwholesome, dealing with everything from our thoughts to our actions.
So maybe the final thought for you, listening right now. We live in a world that's constantly telling us to acquire more, to accumulate, to be heirs to things, possessions, status, experiences. How might your life change if you consciously chose day by day to be more of an heir to wisdom? What might that look like?
Yeah. What small amisa, what material comfort or mental habit might you choose to let go of today, even just for a little while, in favor of cultivating a deeper principle, a deeper quality within yourself?
Something to think about.